In this tutorial, we're going to look at how to recruit volunteers to become school governors and trustees through Inspiring Governance. This includes how to search for volunteers in your area, create a shortlist, send out invites, and then manage responses and conduct ongoing communication through the platform to facilitate discussions. If you've not already watched our 5-minute training video on how to create a vacancy, you might want to do that first, because you can't invite volunteers without first creating a vacancy. Let's get started. First thing we need to do is log into our Inspiring Governance account, which takes us to our individual profile page. Now there are two ways to search for volunteers. The first way I'm going to show you is the one we strongly recommend, but I'll show you the second way as well. For the recommended way, we click on the Manage Opportunities tab because the system calls vacancies opportunities, and select the vacancy we're recruiting for. Click on View and Edit, then select Find Volunteers, taking us to the search screen. This is a multi-recruiter account I'm using, type used by local authorities, MATs and dioceses. The centre of the search circle is fixed on a spot somewhere in the middle of the local authority we're recruiting in. If you have a single recruiter account, the centre of the circle is fixed upon the GPS coordinates of your school. The blue markers are volunteers. The circles are clusters of volunteers. If you click on a circle, they zoom in and subdivide. If you want to refine your search or run a new search, you do it from the left of the screen. There are filters you apply. I'd already set that it was a governor for school role in my vacancy. However, I can still change the radius. In this case, I'm going to expand it to 15 miles. I'd left the skills blank in the vacancy description, but I can still select skills at this point if I'd like. I'm going to select finance. The box here highlights if it's a foundation governor or a future chair role, which on this occasion it's not. Whenever you make changes to the filters, you have to press the search button again. When you click on a blue marker, a brief summary of the volunteer's profile pops up. View profile for more information about them. We encourage volunteers to provide the fullest profiles possible. More often than not, they do. They might also include their LinkedIn address and whether they're willing to uphold the religious character of the school. In some profiles, it lists their own personal faith, which is useful if you're recruiting for a foundation governor role. It might also include whether they're interested in being a future chair. It's worth mentioning this is self-selective. It's up to you to decide if you think they could potentially have the skills and experience to chair your board. When you click out of the profile, their marker turns from blue to grey to remind you that you've already looked at them. This is reset and refreshed every time you run a new search. If you want to add a volunteer to your shortlist, you click the Add Shortlist button. You see their marker turns green. You can review your shortlist at any time by clicking here. In the Review and Invite screen, if you have more than one volunteer on your shortlist, you can either send a group message to all of them, or you can send messages individually by ticking or unticking the Select Invite box. Once you're happy with your invite list, click on the Invite Volunteers button, which takes you to the invite page. Here, you'll see details of your vacancy and a box for you to write your invitation message. I always try to compose a message which I hope motivates the volunteers to respond. When you're happy with your invite, press Send. Invited volunteers receive an alert email prompt into their inbox, which looks like this. The second way to search is from the Search Volunteers tab, which we created for people to have a quick look at who's signed up in their area. From the Search for Volunteers screen, you can search in the same way as before. However, if you shortlist any volunteers, you must either attach them to an existing opportunity like this, or create a new opportunity, because you can't invite a volunteer without linking them to an opportunity. We think it's easier to recruit directly from the opportunity screen in the first place, which is why we advise it, but it's up to you which way you use. Let's look at how to review responses to our vacancies. Click on Manage Opportunities, where we can see all of our vacancies. In the row under the vacancy's name, we can see a summary of invites sent and the number of acceptances. Click on View and Edit, and we see a summary. From here, we can manage it. We can search again and find more volunteers. We can edit the vacancy if we want to make changes or additions. We can cancel it. Cancelling doesn't remove it from your opportunity screen, but it does deactivate it. or we can clone it if we want to create the same vacancy again, although I always just create a new vacancy in that instance. Underneath these buttons, we see more in-depth information on the number of invites we've sent and the responses we've received on the coloured squares. Whenever you get a response to an invite, you get a message in your inbox, but you can always manage responses by coming here. We see here someone has expressed interest. They've seen your vacancy on the platform and sent you a message saying they would like to talk about it. We need to send them a chat message to facilitate that conversation. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. We also have all these acceptances and requests for more information, which links us nicely to the tabs along the top. We only need to be bothered about two of them, the Opportunity Details tab, which we're already in, and the Volunteers tab. We'll use the Volunteers tab to manage and respond to all of these volunteers. It lists all the people you've invited. Now we have quite a lot here. So we can either scroll through them all to look for responses, or we can use the filter, which I find much easier. We find the volunteer who expressed interest first. Remember to press search. We can then find the volunteers who've requested more information, who are often just as interested as the acceptances. We press search again. And then we can find all those acceptances. Here's the date when they accepted. Sometimes they include a message, but sometimes they don't. We can view their profile, but the chat button is the important part because it allows us to respond to them after they've responded to an invite or expressed interest. Click on the chat button, give your message a subject, and compose it. When you send it, the volunteer receives an alert and a copy of it in their inbox. You'll receive the same when they send you a reply. You can manage all of your chats from the Chat tab, and you can use this to discuss the role and the volunteer's experience, exchange contact details, arrange meetings and visits, send an application form or receive a CV. When you've appointed one of our volunteers to your board, please tell us about it by either contacting us or, better still, pressing the green button next to their name. That way, the volunteer can access the 12 months free training and support from the NGA, we can deactivate their account from the system, and we can add them to our match list to help meet our KPIs and ensure that our service continues to be free in the future. If at any point in this process you need any help, go to your profile home screen and contact support.